you guys going to the good deep pizza? Yeah. If I give you guys a heads up, you guys can use because I have to stay here throughout this whole thing. I will. I'll let you know when we got it. Yeah, let me know. I'll give you mine.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, also online, please be patient. We have had a fire drill on, so we are currently setting up for this one because we had to stop and, so we're a little behind schedule, so please bear with us online. We'll get this all set up and he'll start. Okay. Go ahead and plug in. It should work.
Oh, apparently I had performance anxiety.
And then, yeah, I had to get my tough. You guys are rough on my stuff, so I had to bring this.
Not droid builders, never.
All right, let's see if you pop up. I have you on one, so we might have to switch cables real quick. So, yeah, no, here, do this. Switch the cables. Okay. Try that. Give that one a shot, please. Apparently, the Macs don't like this switcher, so.
That's weird. Or the switcher didn't like the Mac.
Now we're gonna go. There you go.
There we go.
Whoa, hang on.
And I can't get up. So microphone-wise,
What would you like to use? You're gonna want to. Here, let me shut off all of these.
And actually, can we check the audio coming out of the computer real quick too?
Yeah, give me. Yep.
All right, let me check.
Droid.
All right, let's check your audio.
All right.
All right, so.
No, give me a second. All right. Should be getting something now.
Hey, here's a knob on the audio.
Anything?
Oh, there we go. Hang on. I got something else.
You coming through? I heard it for a second. There we go. Awesome sauce. All right.
So here we go. You're all set.
All right, and microphone for me.
Yeah.
Test. All right, test, test, test. There we go.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's going to be a little.
No, you're fine.
Go ahead, talk.
Testing, testing.
Yeah, we got you.
All right. All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We are live. We have people online. So if you all can pay attention, and if you're not going to be paying attention, please be quiet in the back so everyone can be respectful. Okay?
Thank you.
You're all good, sir.
All right. Well, hello there, everybody. And thanks to Doug for putting me after the 3.5 Amigos. I really do appreciate having to follow that. Hello, everybody. My name is Todd Word, a.k.a. Highfalutin Todd on astromech. And I'm going to talk to you today about human-cyborg relations, what it is, what it does, and more importantly, how you can add this really cool tech to your droids. So first off, what is human-cyborg relations? Well, as the website describes it, human-cyborg relations converts static sounds into dynamic, immersive audio experiences or animation for sound. Since that didn't mean a lot to me when I first read it, and it might not to you either, in somewhat plainer English, it's a really clever and useful way to generate high-quality canonical droid sounds programmatically and in real time, as opposed to relying on pre-recorded audio files. But let's back up for a second, because to really understand how cool this actually is, let's talk for a minute about how they managed to accomplish this. So a few years ago, builder Michael Pearl set out to find out more about R2's unique voice and sound design, and in doing so, really ended up going down one hell of a rabbit hole. As Michael says about his efforts to reverse engineer R2's speech, as it turns out, R2's voice is striking because he actually speaks with a thoughtful, emotional, codified language. And that speech process can be recreated. From this revelation spawned the R2-D2 vocalizer. It's a language model that generates organic, infinitely varied R2-D2 speech in real time. Now, as cool as that idea alone is just cool as hell. And what Michael and his team did to make it happen is basically bonkers. Now, I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about it because I think it's fascinating. And if this group isn't one that I can geek out with this about, then I don't know who is. So first, what they did was they compiled a collection of around 200 original R2 source recordings. From there, they went about removing imperfections while trying to keep the analog and human imperfections that make R2's voice so unique. After that, they organized all those raw sounds based on tonal character. These have names like whistles, arpeggios, squelches, mumbles, and moans. By this point, they had the basic structure of the quote-unquote words that R2 was saying, but needed to break the words down even further so they could be recombined later into speech. These phonemes, as they're called, were then dissected to understand stylistic impressions. Think, for example, of the number of times that you hear R2 make a particular sound like a moan in the movies, but in different ways. So speaking of the movies, they painstakingly went through all 9 movies in the entire Skywalker saga to find every instance of R2 sounds and identified 634 unique lines that he speaks, which were then time-stamped and exported to audio files. Then the real work started. They reconstructed painstakingly every line of R2's dialogue from every film, one word and phoneme at a time. They then built a custom algorithm that analyzes every line, sound, and phoneme to figure out how to resynthesize variations on R2's language. And since one of the goals of the project is to generate speech that conveys specific emotions instead of just generating sounds at random, the algorithm classifies sounds by a core set of emotions: happiness, sadness, anger, and fear. Now remember those, it's going to be important later. So the team then gave serious thought to the context of what R2 was saying in each scene and in each line, and learned some really fascinating insights based on not just what he was saying, but how he was saying it. Now, this section on the website is fascinating, and I encourage you to read it because it has some really insightful commentary on how brave R2's actions are as a character, especially when you can tell by his speech just how scared or fearful he really is most of the time that he's on screen. And at long last, putting it all together into a usable system. HCR can now generate infinitely variable, emotionally specific new speech that is indistinguishable from the original. Cool. So that's the secret sauce, how it was done. Now, how do we take advantage of that? So there are two ways to utilize the Human-Cyborg Relations project, either through an iOS or Android app, or more interestingly to us Droid builders, as an embedded audio system directly in your Droid itself. Now let's talk about the app for a second first, because it is the fastest, easiest way to start playing around with HCR and understanding how it works and its concepts. It also has some cool hooks into the embedded version. Michael calls both the app and the embedded version vocalizers, so that's how I'm going to be referring to them from this point on as well. Now, give me just 1 second. We're going to flip over. I'm going to show you the app, and we're just going to look at that for just a second. So we should be able to pull that up, and that should have worked. Nope, sorry. Hold on 1 quick second. Entire screen. There we go. Got it. So let's bring up the app. So this is what the vocalizer looks like. It is an iOS or Android device. Since I'm on a Mac, I'm running the iPad version here. And it basically what you see is a bunch of big buttons that allow you to input emotional stimuli. Now, in case you don't read Arabic, basically you can kind of tell by the icons. You've got starting from the bottom left here, you've got sad. So, sad sounds, and you've got angry sounds, you've got, fearful sounds, fearful, angry, sad, kind of happy. And then on the upper row, the more extreme versions of those. So you've got really happy, you've got really sad, you've got really angry, and then you've got really scared. And in HCR, really scared is always going to be the scream. So, and then you've got the overload sequence as well. Now you can tell it's got all of these LEDs on here. What are these LEDs for? Well, one of the neat things about the vocalizer is that it's actually tracking R2's emotional state. Now on the app, you can see it in by these lights, and you'll see that if I just kind of leave it sitting here for a second, those lights are going to kind of eventually start fading down as R2 comes back to his baseline. But if I want to make him happy, come over here, give him an extreme happy, the lights start to go up over there, and then I give it a little bit more, and he just gets happier and happier. So what I'm really doing is I'm not asking him to play a sound or a pre-recorded sound. I'm asking him to be happier. Or I'm asking him to be sad. And you can watch as the sadness goes up, the happiness goes down. So R2's emotional state is actually changing. So it's a really interesting way to think of things from a sound generation standpoint with your Droid. Now, it can do a lot more things as well. We'll hit on a couple of things. You can, the memory you can add in, but one of the neat things you can do is you can actually use all of those phonemes that we talked about earlier to create your own specific R2 sounds by building them directly here within the thing. So I can add in, so that's a bird song. I can add in another piece. Let's add in a chipmunk here. Let's add in a couple of I forgot to do that. So we'll do next. We'll add in a moan here, and then all of a sudden I can play that back, and I've generated my own sound. Now, the neat thing about that is I can actually export that to the embedded vocalizer. In fact, I've done that so that when I turn on my Droid, instead of just getting the standard stealth beeps, I have a unique sound that I generated in HCR for my Droid. So I know that's my Droid starting up. There's a lot of other things we'll talk about later, but there's where you can do the data export. But that is the app kind of in a very, very brief nutshell. It's a good way. You can download it right now for your iOS, for your Android device, and start playing with that. And like I said, a really neat way to just kind of start messing around with human-cyborg relations. But let's jump back over to what's going to really appeal to us, the real goodies for Droid builders, where the rubber hits the road, the embedded vocalizer. Now, let me be clear up front. We're really skimming the surface here in a lot of ways. Between the HCR project itself being pretty in-depth and every Droid being different, I'm going to be talking about this in fairly broad terms and using my own integration with my own Droid as examples. You're going to want to read through the really well-written documentation on Human-Cyborg-Relations.com. And thanks to Greg, who I saw had put a lot of QR codes in his deck. I added those to mine as well, so feel free to grab those as we're going along. Speaking of QR codes, I also documented my install pretty thoroughly on my astromech.net build log. So if you want to follow along with how I did it in my particular Droid, feel free to grab that link. I've also just started a table of contents now, so you can actually get to it much more easily than you could before. So there's that. Give everybody a second to just grab those pictures there. It's like paparazzi, but for QR codes.
And again, guys, this will be on the Droid Builder, so you can always come back to this and come back to his actual video, and it's up there. I just tested it out; it works.
Absolutely. All right. So, in terms of adding the embedded version of HCR to your own Droid, there are two paths. You can roll your own, or you can get some pre-built hardware. Now, HCR is built around the Teensy 4.1 dev board. So if you want to roll your own, you're going to have one of those, along with the Teensy audio adapter, because that's what has the audio codec. The HCR code that you're going to need to flash onto that Teensy to make the system work is available for download on the Human-Cyborg-Relations.com website. Now, if you want to go the pre-built route, there's a builder named Trevor, and I'm going to mangle this last name. I apologize. Zarud? Say again? Trevor Z. That's perfect. I should have thought of that. Trevor Z has an excellent custom vocalizer board available on his website at grnwave.com. Again, QR code there. It comes in two versions, an inexpensive one that has the Teensy included and the HCR software preloaded, or a downright cheap one if you've already got a Teensy or want to be able to supply your own. Now, this is the route that I went down, and if you want to as well, you're going to want to keep a close eye on Trevor's site, as they run out of stock pretty often, and they do sell out fast when more stock gets posted. So keep a close eye on that.
Yeah, currently out of stock.
Yeah, there you go. So that's why I brought up the roll your own part of this. Now, again, it's not tough to roll your own because there's not a whole lot to this. I mean, as long as you've got the Teensy, as long as you've got the audio board, you've got the code available for download, it's not a bunch. But again, I love a good custom board, and I love supporting the Droid community. So you guys do as you want, because at its most basic, you're going to need four main components for a working HCR system embedded in your Droid. From left to right, you're going to need some way to control the HCR vocalizer. For me, it's the stealth system, but for you, it might be Kyber, Shadow, whatever your control system of choice is. Next, you're going to need the HCR vocalizer itself, of course, as well as an audio amplifier and speakers. How much more complex we'll get from there will depend on your Droid, but since most existing Droids already have control systems, amps, and speakers, it really does become a matter of installing the HCR vocalizer between your control system and your amp and speakers. So I'm not going to go super deep into data and control here, but there are an extensive array of commands that can be sent to the HCR vocalizer from your control system. This is just a sampling of some of the commands that are available. And again, they are well documented and listed out over on Human-Cyborg-Relations.com. One important thing to note here is that when you're triggering, is what you're triggering with the commands. Notice that we're talking about this in the terms of the same emotional input stimuli that we were talking about in the app as well. I'm going to talk more about this in a minute, but it's good to get your head wrapped around the idea that in HCR parlance, when you're sending commands, what you're really doing is you're sending emotional input stimuli instead of simply triggering sounds. So command of SHO, mild happy. You get the idea. So let's take a look at how all of this comes together in a real world example, namely my R2-D2 astromech droid sitting right here. So this is a very broad block diagram of how HCR is implemented in my droid. And it came from a lot of trial and error to get to this point, along with some really great advice and feedback from other builders in the community, like Vagabond Elf and Maui, shouting you guys out. In a nutshell, you can see the same basic building blocks that we talked about earlier. Stealth for my control system, the HCR vocalizer, amplifier, and speakers. For me, the added complexity starts with the fact that I'm using Greg Hewlett's excellent wireless control boards, the WCBs, to sling serial data around my droid. So that lives between the Stealth and the HCR vocalizer. Basically, serial data gets sent from the Stealth to the WCB and then rebroadcast to the vocalizer. This is also a good place to note for you other Stealth users out there that Chris James, creator of Stealth, was kind enough to create a custom version of the Stealth firmware that sends volume commands to the HCR vocalizer so that when you adjust the volume on the Stealth thumb wheels using the Stealth remote, it basically lets you control the volume for both Stealth MP3 playback and HCR audio at the same time. Really nice. Really appreciate that, Chris. And I'll get more into that in a second. You're also going to need ground loop isolators on all of your audio sources to prevent hum or interference. You'll notice that I've got 3 of them in my system, thanks primarily to this thing, an audio mixer. This is a simple and handy addition for a few reasons. The nice thing and the reason that I added it is that it allows me to have 3 separate audio channels. I still have the built-in MP3 playback from the Stealth, but now I have the HCR vocalizations. And if I want to, I can also have wave playback from the HCR. And the nice thing is I can play all 3 at once right on top of each other thanks to the mixer. So just to show you real quickly what that is kind of like, I can, like I said, not only be playing a sound from the HCR vocalizer, but I can also start an MP3 playback from the Stealth. So there's some music coming over that. But then I can still be playing those vocalizations right on top of that. And if I really, really wanted to, I could also go ahead and layer on another track from the HCR, its wave playback in there as well. Not a ton of reasons why you might want to do that, but if you've got the need, the ability is right there. So that's up on screen is how all of this looks in my droid. You can see the vocalizer board on the left, the Stealth on the right-hand side, and that WCB, the wireless communication board, in the middle, connecting the two via serial communication. Tucked away in a corner are 2 of my ground loop isolators, and you can kind of see that passive mixer down in the lower left-hand corner. And in another corner, the big old amplifier with the 3rd ground loop isolator that's tucked underneath that. To trigger the vocalization, it's just a matter of mapping commands onto your controllers. So here you can see more or less the buttons that I'm using on my Stealth controllers. So sometimes I have a button tied to just a sound like mild angry. Okay, just a nice little poot there. But usually the vocalizations are connected to animation sequences like extreme happy, where I give a little wave whenever he gives an extreme happy, or I can do a mild happy and give a little eyebrow waggle. So that's kind of a nice little flirtatious thing to do when he's talking to somebody. So it's a nice way to be able to connect those things together. Now, Scream is one of my favorites to show off how unique the HDR vocalizations are, because we're all familiar with R2's iconic Scream sound. But notice when I play it back again and again. Notice that they're changing, they're unique, they're different. Because we're not just playing back one pre-recorded Scream sound, it's actually triggering unique emotional responses that are generating those sounds in real time. And one more that I'll highlight is Muse Mode, which is helpful when you want to just have R2 hanging out on his own, but still have some personality. So when you enable Muse Mode, every few seconds, R2 is just going to make some sounds, like he's just muttering to himself. And when I have it like I've got here, combined with an automatic dome system like Romadome or the Stealth Autodome system, it really kind of helps to bring R2 to life, give him a little bit more personality. And it's nice for him to be a little bit autonomous if you need to be able to leave him sitting unattended for a bit, because it's just kind of like he's hanging out and he's looking around and he's making some comments about what he's seeing and what he's doing. So now, for all of that, we are still just kind of scratching the surface. I'm personally really just using HCR to make cool, unique R2D2 sounds. But you brilliant builders out there can do really crazy things with it, like query the vocalizer and get it to return R2's emotional state for each emotion on a scale of 0 to 100. So imagine being able to programmatically change R2's lights or dome behavior or whatever else you want to do just by querying the vocalizer for how R2 is feeling. You can also override the behavior to have R2's voice be more canonical or more improvisational, depending on how you want and how you prefer. And if R2D2 isn't your thing, there's a bunch of other droid builders here doing a bunch of other droids. There's an entire other HCR project that will allow you to create your own completely custom, completely unique astromech droid sounds. There's even a gonk vocalizer where they promise no two gonks will ever sound quite the same. And so with that, I will pause for a second and see if there are any questions that I can attempt to answer.
All right, I got the microphone.
That's right, R2.
Who needs it? There you go.
Hey, can you use the, I guess, custom droid side and in the embedded app?
Yes.
And have it still be dynamically created, or are you exporting waves from?
No. I believe, and somebody can correct me on this, the gonk vocalizer I don't think is able to be embedded, but the astromech version is.
Awesome.
So
okay.
it's literally just you put it in the same vocalizer to change out the code and you're good to go.
And my other question is, I got the V1 board like right when it came out, and I haven't had a chance to integrate it. Has anything changed, like from then that I would, other than maybe reflashing
the vocalizer board?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there have been some hardware changes, but the code is what's the important thing.
Okay.
Because the Trevor Z's board is literally just an interface for the Teensy.
Okay.
And so as long as you've got the Teensy, as long as you've got the code, that's the important part. Anything else is just interface to the rest of the droid.
Cool. And then if you do like the custom droid sounds, is that replace like the R2 one, or is like, can all of that exist in the same Teensy chip?
I think it's going to be either or.
Okay.
I've always been, of course, just straight up R2. I mean, now you could do. Yeah. So,
okay.
So, but again, you could potentially have multiple vocalizers in your droid through a mixer like I'm doing, and kind of have the best of both worlds that way. But yeah, I've never tried doing it on one, but I can't imagine it'd be possible.
I assume then you could even have like multiple Teensies ready to go and essentially have like personality chips that you're swapping out the.
That is where I'm going to throw it back to you guys, and
cool.
you guys figure out the cool stuff from there. I can tell you all about R2. The other droids, that's up to somebody else. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Oh, all the way.
Did you say the vocalizer is only on your app? It's not on a board?
Oh, it's not my app. I can't take credit for any of this. I'm just a guy talking about it. I believe it's just an app, but don't quote me on that. Again, and more information is available on that on Human-Cyborg-Relations.com.
Anybody else?
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I do have one last thing that I wanted to hit while I had people's attention. I promised that I would do this, and I'm going to do it. Kevin Gerhardt, if you haven't seen on the board, is got a new Periscope run. For those looking for Periscopes, if you want to see it, I have one. So please feel free to check me out, find it. That run is live right now. They're going fast, but this is the very first one off the line. So come, feel free to check that out to see what you'd be getting. I know everybody's been excited about being able to get their hands on new metal. That's right. Get their hands on new metal periscopes. But with that, thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you, everybody. We're gonna shut down and we're gonna get ready for the next one. Oh, wait. Would you like to answer an online question?
Oh, sure.
Hang on a second. All right, Vlog Clawtooth, go ahead and type your question. His question is TTS synthesis to R2 output. Does that make sense?
Oh, no.
Apparently that's a no.
But they're actually having some, I was having some interesting conversations with another builder yesterday about being able to do something like that. So it'd be neat to be able to figure it out.
All right, so it's a possibility, but he doesn't have that ability right now. All right, thank you all very much. I'm going to end the stream and you guys have a good time. Okay, end stream.
So